So the passion, according to GH, continued. Because I haven't told everything. I haven't told how, sitting there and unmoving, I still had not stopped looking with great disgust. Yes, still with disgust at the yellowed white paste atop the roach's grayness. And I knew that as long as I was disgusted, the world would elude me and I would elude me. I knew that the basic error in living was being disgusted by a roach. Being disgusted by kissing the leper was my erring the first life within me. Since being disgusted contradicts me, contradicts my matter within me. Then the one thing that I, out of pity for myself, didn't want to think, then I thought it. I could no longer hold myself back. And I thought what really was already thought. Now, out pity from his hand I am holding in mine, out of pity for what that hand is not going to understand. I don't want to take it with me to the horror to which I went yesterday alone. Because what I suddenly found is that the moment had come not only to understand that I must no longer transcend, but the instant had come to really no longer transcend. And to have now what I used to think should be for tomorrow, I'm trying to spare you, but I can't. Because redemption had to be in the thing itself, and redemption in the thing itself would be put in my mouth, the white paste of the roach. At the very idea, I shut my eyes with the power of someone locking her teeth, and I clenched my teeth so hard that any more and they would have broken inside my mouth. My entrails were saying no. My paste was rejecting the roaches. I had stopped sweating once again. I had entirely dried. I tried to reason with my disgust. Why would I be disgusted by the paste coming out of the roach? Had I not drunk of the white milk that is liquid maternal paste, and on drinking the thing of which my mother was made, had I not called it namelessly love? But reason was getting me nowhere except with teeth clenched as though made of shivering flesh. I couldn't. There was only one way I could. If I gave myself a hypnotic command, then as if I had fallen asleep and acted somnambulistically, and when I opened my eyes from sleep, I already would have done. And it would be like a nightmare from which one wakes free because it was while sleeping that one lived through the worst. But I knew that was not how I should do it. I knew that I would have to eat the paste of the roach, but eat it all of me, and eat it also my own fear. Only then would I have what suddenly seemed to me would be the anti-sin. Eating the paste of the roach is the anti-sin. Sin would be my easy purity. The anti-sin, but at what a price? At the price of traversing a sensation of death. I got up and took a step forward with the determination, not of a suicide, but of a murderer of myself. The sweat now started again. I was now sweating from head to toe, my sticky toes sliding inside my slippers, and the root of my hair was softening that viscous thing that was now my new sweat, a sweat I didn't recognize, and that smell like what comes from dried up earth after the first rains. That deep sweat was, however, what enlivened me. I was slowly swimming through my oldest primeval soup. The sweat was plankton and pneuma and pabulum vitae. I was me being. No, my love, it wasn't good like what's called good. It was what's called bad, really very, very bad, since my root, which I was only now tasting, had the flavor of potato tuber mixed with the earth from which it had been torn. Yet that bad taste had a strange grace of life that I can only understand if I felt it again, and can only explain by feeling it again. I took one more step, but instead of moving forward, I suddenly threw up the milk and bread I had eaten for breakfast, entirely shaken by the violent vomit, which had not even been preceded by the warning of nausea, disillusioned with myself, frightened by my lack of strength to go through with a gesture that seemed to me the only one that could unite my body to my soul. Despite myself, after throwing up, I calmed down, my forehead refreshed and physically peaceful. Which was worse, now I would have to eat the roach, but without the help of the earlier exaltation, the exaltation that would have acted in me like a hypnosis. I'd vomited the exaltation, and unexpectedly, after the revolution that is vomiting, I felt physically simple as a girl. It would have to be this way, like a girl who was unintentionally happy that I would eat the paste of the roach. So I stepped forward. My joy and my shame came upon awaking from the faint. No, it hadn't been a faint, it had been more of a dizziness, since I was still standing, resting my hand on the wardrobe, a dizziness that made me lose track of moments and of time. But I knew even before thinking that while I took leave of myself in the dizziness, something had been done. I didn't want to think, but I knew. I was afraid of tasting in my mouth what I was tasting. I was afraid of running my hand across my lips and finding traces, and I was afraid of looking at the roach, which now should have less white paste upon its opaque back. I was ashamed of having gone dizzy and unconscious in order to do something that I would never again know how I had done, since before doing it, I had removed from myself all participation. I had not wanted to know. So that was how things were processed, not knowing. So that was how the deepest things happened. Some things would always have to be apparently dead in order for the living to process. I'd had not I'd had to not know that I was alive. Was the secret of never escaping from the greater life living like a sleepwalker? Or was living like a sleepwalker the greatest act of trust, closing one's eyes in dizziness and never knowing what went on? Like a transcendence which is the memory of the past, of the present, of the future. In me was transcendence the only way I could reach the thing, since even eating of the roach I had acted to transcend the very act of eating it. And now all I had was the vague memory of a horror. All I had was the idea. Until the memory got so strong that all my body screamed inside itself. I tensed my fingernails on the wall. I now felt the nastiness in my mouth, and then began to spit, to furiously spit the taste of no such thing, taste of a nothing that nonetheless seemed almost sweetened to me like certain flower petals. Taste of myself. I was spitting out myself without ever reaching the point of feeling that I had finally spit out my whole soul. Because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth, is what the apocalypse, according to St. John, and the phrase that must refer to other things I no longer remembered, the phrase came to me from the depths of memory, standing for the insipid of which I had eaten, and I was spitting. Which was difficult because a neutral thing is extremely energetic. I was spitting and it was still I. I only halted in my fury when I understood with surprise that I was undoing everything I had laboriously done, when I understood that I was renouncing myself, and that, alas, I was only up to my own life. I stopped astonished, and my eyes filled with tears that only burned and did not flow. I think I did not even judge myself worthy that tears should flow. I lacked the first pity for myself which allows crying, and in my pupils I retained in ardor the tears that were assaulting me and that I did not deserve to flow. But even without flowing, the tears were in some way companions and bathed me in some way with commiseration, so that I started lowering a consoled head. And like someone returning from a journey, I returned to sitting quietly on the bed. I, who had thought that the best proof of the transmutation of me into myself would be putting the white paste of the roach in my mouth, and that way I would draw near to whatever is divine, to whatever is real. The divine for me is whatever is real.